Partnerships are risky. So how do you know when you found the perfect partner, and how do you set that partnership up for success? In this episode, you will hear from two business partners we all know at Principal Choice.
Dan Coleman and Amy Carbajal join us to share with you how they launched this company and turned it into a success, and how this can help you and your career at PCS right now.
Find your purpose, find your people, find your place at PCS. This is the Principal Choice Podcast. Welcome to Omaha. How was your guys' flight?
Tough, but
Yeah.
yes, it's always hard flying from Omaha to Oklahoma. I have to go backwards to come forwards, and he has a direct flight, so his is always easier than mine.
Like a duck.
I love Delta. I missed that direct flight during COVID.
Oh, I bet. I bet.
But it's good. It's good. We
Yeah.
got here. We're here. We're happy to be
Yeah, no, we're happy to have you here. I
you.
feel like it's been forever since I've seen both of you. It's just like Christmas party and then maybe again sometime during the year if there's a special event or something like that. So we kind of wanted to dig in a little bit into your partnership and where it started, where it came from. So if you could kind of like dive in a little bit to when it began, even if it was before it was, hey, this is Principal Choice. How'd you guys first meet?
Well, we actually met, gosh, it was probably about 20 years ago. I was in the Air Force. She was actually working at the Air Education and Training Command headquarters.
Okay.
And she had put out some taskers that had to do with Excel sheets. And me being at Goodfellow Air Force Base in San Angelo, Texas, a young lieutenant, and good at Excel, I figured out how to get around her tasker really quickly.
Yeah.
And so I got a phone call from her maybe a couple of times asking me what I was doing, but that was our first experience together.
Yeah.
Okay.
And fast forward over the years, we were on opposite sides. She was with different companies as a vendor at some point, as a private citizen, and I was still in the military. And as I went up the ranks, she just happened to always be there. I think they knew that I liked her. I respected her professionally. I mean, she was the most professional vendor I'd ever met, and so we just really hit it off well. And we did some amazing things at some of those bases. It was a true cooperation between the private sector and government at the time, and it was due to just something that I probably can't put my finger on now.
It's been hard to kind of put our finger on that, but you know how sometimes you meet people and you just have this like shared values, and it was almost immediate once I got past the fact that he could hack my Excel spreadsheets back at AUTC. But when we moved like through the ranks together, I remember the first really long conversation I ever had with him. He was the client at McConnell Air Force Base.
Okay.
I was the vendor going out to set up, I think it was appointing and referral management. And
that was the first time it had been done in the Air Force.
Oh,
right,
wow.
Oh,
right.
wow,
It was like
yeah.
a
Very
centralized
cool.
contract.
Nice.
And so I go out there, and I think you were a captain at the time. And again, we knew each other. And we had clicked as colleagues before, but this was our first real interaction face-to-face. Actually, it might have been the first time I ever saw you face-to-face. And this was in 2008, I think. About 2008, you were at McConnell?
Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
Something like that. Yes.
So we go in there, and we're setting up this contract, and he's the client, and
Yeah.
I'm the vendor, and I want to set it up just amazing. And I remember we were supposed to have some sort of a closeout meeting where before I left that day, I was supposed to stop by his office. I think you got pulled into a meeting, and so he called me. And I was driving from Wichita, Kansas to Wichita Falls, Texas, which was quite a drive.
Long drive,
Yeah.
Right, yes.
Yeah,
and I
that's
remember
a bit of a stretch.
racing down the interstate through Kansas, and he calls me, and we ended up talking like an hour and a half. And I was like, okay, we are going to do a really good job on
Yeah.
this project because we had such common views of how it should
Yeah.
go. But what he doesn't know is that the interstates were being fixed in Kansas, and I was down to one lane, barriers both sides, cell phone. Don't do this, folks. This was 2008 when we really didn't follow those rules.
Yeah.
Phone like this, trying to drive through barrier, talking for like an hour and a half with him, but I think it just kind of proved our commonalities.
Yeah.
I had no idea she was driving.
I guess
Serious.
the cell service was good in Kansas,
Yes.
but yeah. So that was our first real true.
Okay.
Oh my gosh, we there are so many things about us professionally
Yeah.
that click,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
and went on and had a very nice contract. That was very successful back then.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. But I think still not to send me Excel spreadsheets that I can manipulate. I tell you what, that was a business plan that we were doing for the hospital, and I figured out if I just manipulated a few numbers, that I could make it work, and headquarters would leave us alone.
There you go.
Then, of course, I had to have the conversation with the doctors to say, well, yeah, I know it looks like you have to see 96 patients a day, but that's not real. It's just what I put in there. It makes it work.
I'm at AETC saying, why isn't Goodfellow meeting their numbers? Well, it was because of Lieutenant Coleman here.
I think we were exceeding. That's how I remember it.
Yeah.
you
Anyway, but again, it's meeting somebody you click with. And really, that's what kickstarted everything.
Got it.
Yeah.
Makes sense. That goes back a long ways. And you knew each other a little bit before like that click
Yes.
happened.
Yeah,
It was-
for about 4 years,
Okay.
different.
And I think that's
different
one thing
things.
that's really interesting. Like you'll still know someone, but like you don't really know them just yet. And then here's that hour and a half long phone call when you're
Yeah.
driving through Kansas, and it's like, oh my goodness,
Right.
this is like perfect. There are
Right.
so many good things that can come from this.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's kind of wild how you're like, I can feel like we can vibe together, we can work together, but like really being able to see that timeline and when that actually click happens, and then it just feels like a natural flow, a natural
Right.
rhythm,
100%.
and you can work off of each other. And as you were saying, your values, your morals and ethics, they somehow line into allowing you to kind of move forward and grow. That's really just, it's so cool to see that kind of happening, especially when it's like, I don't know, I feel like this could be a cool thing. And then seeing it actually flourish is just really amazing.
Yeah, and from there, it just continued. I mean, when he went up to command in D.C. For the Air Force, by then I was with, a company where we continued to work together like that.
got it.
Only
So a
he
lot of
kept
these,
going
like-
up in the ranks,
Yeah.
and
It was more just destiny, kind of in a way. Like in a way, like it was just like, wow, Dan's doing his thing. Amy, you're doing your thing, and it's just like we just keep getting pushed together.
keep
Like
coming.
just
But
keeps
what's
happening.
so interesting is then all of a sudden, I'm meeting his family. And I'm clicking with his family, and he's
Yeah.
meeting mine, and we're clicking,
Yeah.
And so that it actually kind of carried over into that too.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything that happens in my family with my kids that I don't tell Dan and Jen about.
Yeah.
Almost immediately. So that kind of feels
It's that
good.
friendship there.
Yeah.
too.
But that didn't happen immediately. 'Cause
No.
I think you came on beginning, well, it was a couple of years after you came on when I flew out to Oklahoma. I got to meet your family and whatnot. But we had known about them. But heck, we weren't even Facebook friends until maybe 2 years ago, a year ago. Like we tried to keep it very professional and
Yeah.
we've slowly become really good friends.
Yeah.
I often reflect on how many things in our lives had to go right and how many things had to go wrong to put us in that position, and I wouldn't change anything.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's absolutely a relationship of mutual respect.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes it work.
I do too.
100%.
And being very different and the same. Does
Right.
that make sense?
Yeah, that 100%
Like
makes
have the
sense.
shared maybe core values,
Yeah.
but not being so similar about how to get there.
Yeah.
That you can't have. I mean, recently I told him, I think what makes this such a good, strong partnership is that we don't always agree.
Yeah.
I mean, we fight like cats and dogs sometimes.
Yeah.
Not literally, but we will argue
You're
about
going to
things.
have points where that happens.
I've been hung up on a few times. I can drive her crazy. But you know what? We've learned how to communicate so much
Yeah.
better because of that. Now, if I drive her nuts, she stops, says, Dan, you're driving me nuts.
Yeah. And
We-
ditto.
We pause, and then we move forward. And
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
I can't think of very many people outside of my family that I can communicate as well with and be as honest about how I'm feeling
Yeah.
about things than
That's
Amy.
that's special, 100%. There's kind of a few things I want to kind of expand on a little bit there. So this is more outside of the work mindset or the professional mindset. But me and my girlfriend, we have this book that we're going through, where it's like kind of like a workbook. And I'll make this connect here in a second, but it's a book called 101 Questions to Ask Before You Get Engaged. Okay, you know, that's a personal relationship. It's looking at it in that way, but in many ways, a business partnership is a lot like a marriage because finances are tied into it. You know, one decision that Amy makes is going to affect the company. A decision that Dan makes is going to affect the company financially. And then just things that you're looking for in the future.
Clear communication,
yeah.
same goals. I mean, the future planning, everything like that. Yeah.
And there's going to be conflict, like you said. And I think the biggest thing too is making sure that conflict doesn't stay there, kind of turning it more into like dialogue. Like, how are we going to grow from this? Kind of like you mentioned, where it's like, okay, maybe if we're getting in this area, now we know, let's transition a little bit differently. So kind of speaking on conflicts and things like that, maybe don't dive into, if you don't want to, if you want to dive into it, let's do it. I think it'll be fun. But some of the conflicts that are dialogue opportunities that you guys have had, maybe that'll be a little bit more of a positive spin. What you've learned from each other and how it's helped the partnership. Maybe not just cues, but like, this was a really hard decision. How did we put our brains together and like figure out what we want to do?
Yeah, the problem solving.
Yeah,
aspect
problem
of
solving
that,
together.
Honestly, do you mind if I
You
start
say
it?
anything.
Well,
No,
green
total
light.
transparency.
No,
I have nothing to hide.
That's what, because I don't have anything to hide either.
Yeah.
I think it's a good story in
100%.
being open. So I will speak about my flaws.
Okay.
So when I joined this company, I told him I am coming from an abusive relationship.
Got it.
Work,
Yeah.
not personal. Don's perfectly
Yeah.
fine to me.
He's fabulous.
He's fabulous. He's
Shout out
perfect.
Don.
But I came from abusive prior relationships, and we bonded a little bit of that
Yeah.
because he did
Yeah.
as well. I'm not going to tell your story, but
okay.
and I explained to him that in that sort of an environment, I didn't feel like I had a voice. I didn't feel like I had much of a say.
Yeah.
And what I've learned through the years with him is I do have a say. I do have a
Yeah.
voice. It took me a long time to get there.
Yeah.
I would say it's only been in the last year
Wow.
that I finally got to the point where I could say, time out, stop. What you just said pained me
Yeah.
for whatever reason. And so what I like encourage is being transparent and open with that, because I think when you're not, when you just close down, turn it off, what he said was painful, but I'm just going to push through it.
Yeah.
I don't think we have to do that. If you are in a relationship, work or personal, in which both people care, I don't think we have to do that anymore. And
Yeah.
it finally took, I am XX amount of age, and it finally took all those years to realize, but
Yeah.
you have to have somebody willing to play that part with you,
Exactly.
right? So I would say in the last year, I've been able to just be much more open. And when I was open, then he understood how I felt. And I'm only just telling my side. And
Yeah.
once I was able to articulate that, then he was able to go, wait a minute. Okay, let's get on the same page here.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's really hard to do as well. I know I'm learning better language to describe how I'm reacting to a situation and how people are, how I feel when someone says something to me, and kind of try and digest a little bit more, because those feelings are valid. They're there for a reason. You are obviously overcoming trauma or things of that nature from those
100%.
previous relationships, business, personal, anything like that. But how can you frame it where it's not then being detrimental to the current relationship? And
But
we're
it
trying to
takes
uplift it.
two.
It's a
It
juggling
does.
thing too.
It is.
And making sure that it's not only the dialogue, but listening to that dialogue as well. And then
Yeah.
hearing that person out, understanding where they're coming from, and saying, well, okay, I didn't mean for that to happen. I'm sorry that you felt that way this way, and kind of being
Right.
able to move on and,
And
see
not
that
being
problem being solved.
defensive, because
Yeah.
I found
100%.
myself being so defensive. And when I started opening myself up to Dan's point of view when we differed, then I was like, okay, take a step back,
Yeah.
drop the emotion from this,
Yep.
and let's look at this logically. And that's when it started happening for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a big thing. I remember this was back when I was in high school. I had an internship. We had to do it for school. It was an entrepreneurship program, like an academy we had at our high school. And one of the things was you have to do an internship. So you would leave school, you'd go work there. And it's senior year. Everyone gets senioritis, and you're just like, I'm done with it. I don't want to do anything anymore. Let's just get out of here. And at the beginning of it, it was great. They were like, Eric's amazing. He comes in, he does everything he needs to do. And then it slowly started trailing down as we started to get to like spring. And then the teacher at the time, she was actually one of the teachers and instructors for like a lot of the stuff I do. And her first thing she said to me, as soon as she was giving me that feedback, and I started to get that like look in my face, was stop. You're being defensive. She was very, very forward. And I was like, I feel like my brain reset. Like, that was a checkpoint moment of like, I need to look at this more. Like, and I'm happy it happened now and not 7 years down the line when I'm jumping between jobs because I keep getting defensive and all these other things. It was a nice like barrier break. So I get that defensive thing 100%. Dan, what about you?
Well, I mean, we've had quite a few confrontations, and I think we've gotten a lot better because when I started this, or when we kind of started going, I came from, the military, and one of the things in leadership there is you want to portray an aura of confidence, if you will.
100%.
Yeah. Yeah.
And even if you don't know the answer and whatnot, and not that I always have the right answer, but personally, I have a hard time, or had a hard time, when she would challenge me on things, because there's a little bit of pride wrapped up in there, and there's that need to have the answer, the need to be right, or the need to feel like that's my place, like I've got to have it.
Yeah.
So I think listening to Amy and going through some of our initial kind of headbutting to where I was being very stubborn and I really wasn't listening, I've really broken down, and I think that's what I needed help with, is breaking down the ego and becoming more vulnerable, right? I lean into vulnerability now more than anything, because it's been a point of growth between us, and certainly for me professionally. But I know I was the cause of many of those, because I was very headstrong. I thought I had the answer. I thought I was right, and why can't she just see that I'm right?
Yeah.
And thank goodness she saw through that period and stuck with me and gave me grace, really, is what I needed.
Yeah.
Because, we wouldn't be here if she hadn't had that patience with me.
100%.
And now and you'll know, in fact, every question we've had now, I defer to you first. I want to hear what you have to say first. And it's because she's brilliant, right? And oftentimes I am wrong. So I listen first and then add my opinion at the end, if it's even necessary.
Yeah.
But
He's not giving himself enough credit, though.
getting to that point was not easy. And when you said, like the professional relationship is like a marriage, you're not kidding. I mean, we know a lot about each other, professionally and personally now. And I love that we've grown, but it was that acceptance that I think we both kept going, knowing that we were doing something that was bigger than ourselves. That's what we wanted, or at least what we wanted to believe. And I think we're on the right track, I think. But it really took a lot of humility. And I thought I was a very humble person before, but Amy has helped me grow considerably. And she's got the scars to prove it.
Well, and he's got the scars too, because I was high emotion. You gave a lot of grace too, Dan. Yeah. There were a lot of instances where maybe I did something that he should have gotten rid of me over, and instead he made me his partner. So
It's that big picture mindset. It's
right?
Like,
Yeah.
I know it's.
Yeah.
I will say, working for him is the first time I truly believe what this leader is saying to me, that he gave me confidence. I didn't have.
Right.
So. She meant to say with me. Not for me, with me. So, no, but, the question that you asked, we kind of are tap dancing around, because I think you were looking for more of a juicy story of one of those conflicts. But the reality is that, even though we talk about it like there were these tipping points that we might have gone separate ways, I don't think they were ever so bad that us as intellectuals couldn't see a little bit past that.
Yeah.
And so not one of those sticks out in my mind. Like, I only remember the good things now.
Yeah.
I don't remember
Yeah.
the struggle. So I have a hard time finding one that would be really juicy or interesting because...
I can't. I remember things that happened because of high emotion. I can't remember the why, though. I remember one time we were in a call face to face, and I may have dropped a bad word and hung up. And he said something that rubbed me the wrong way, and I wasn't going to have it. And then about 8 o'clock that night, my cell phone rings, and he's on speakerphone with Jen,
my wife. My better half.
Who had sort of heard what had happened during that call. And she, let's just say, helped to bridge the situation. But to be honest,
that's a kind way of saying, she said, Dan, get your butt back on that phone. You apologize.
And make it snappy.
I don't even remember what happened. So he's right. I don't remember the why it happened. I just remember the high emotion. But But see, now in retrospect, I look back at times like that and I realize, again, shared values, different ways. It's kind of like parenting, right?
Yeah.
You've got two different kinds of parents, a mom and a dad, or two dads, whatever, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Parenting, and they have different ways. As long as they both love, they both care, they may just have different. We have different approaches. We think
100%.
extraordinarily different. He's... very brilliant and high thinking. He thinks very broad about things. I'm an executor.
Get it done.
Not like Marie Antoinette executor, but I mean, I'm out there. I
No,
want
I know
to,
what
you mean.
I'm a, let's make a list, let's get her
Yeah.
done. And so we've learned how to maybe navigate through that. So
Yeah.
when he says something broad, I say, is that what you want? Is that what you want to do? Now I know to ask. Whereas before I'd go off and go, I have no direction. I have no idea.
How am I going to execute this? How am
Exactly.
I going to accomplish this task? Because I understand that it can be very cerebral when you come up with those ideas too, and they're very nebulous, and you have this grand idea, but trying to figure out how to solidify it and put it into reality and make it an actual sustainable thing can be difficult.
You just
I'm all
summed up
there.
Amy's experience for the last 10 years.
I feel you.
Cerebral, nebulous, brilliant is what I get from that side. And then
Too kind.
I take it and kind of maybe we take it and we execute on that based on how So we've learned how to do that together now. Instead of he's over here doing it, I'm over here doing it, and we're fighting, we work together on these things.
For sure.
Yeah.
Kind of like you were saying, Melina, like, at least for me, one of the hardest things is where Amy, where you come in more. That let's get it done. I'm more of like the big picture of I have this amazing idea. Like I love making music. So I've like every couple of years I'll be like, oh, I really want to like try to put together like a project. 2 weeks in, I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like I have 4 different things here that I'm working on. And now I'm just like, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And even honestly speaking too, like it sometimes felt like that way when we were starting to build this podcast too. Because I was like, oh, let's go do this thing. Let's do this. And Dan can probably even attest to some of the ideas we had. It was like, maybe you guys should slow down a little bit, but think about it, ask the questions. So yeah, it's just very cool to see how that partnership works with the big ideas. And then you have the other side of, this is what we need to do. Or this is what I need from you. Let's get it done. Let's execute it.
It's funny you said that because that's actually a skill set I learned from Amy. You are very detailed. You execute. You're very like, okay, this needs to go, this, and this.
Yeah.
But with you guys, when you started with big ideas and you had a lot that you were going to try to put on yourselves in a very short amount of time, I kind of brought on my Amy hat. I was thinking, what would Amy say? And it would be, hey, maybe you want to space these out. Like the resources that you're talking about, your time especially, may not work for this, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
I joke around saying this is what happens when you get 2 extra creative people together.
Yeah.
And we're just like, we have to go big or go home.
Yeah.
And it has to be now. And it's like, no. That tether to reality is really important. And sometimes you have to remember, as cheesy as the saying is, Rome wasn't built in a day. And they say that for a reason. So you can still create something great and take your time. Right. And really, that's even better because then you can focus on it and really make sure that you're honing your skill and creating this in a beautifully crafted way instead of just like, I'm going to be Jackson Pollock and bloop, everything's perfect, you know.
Well, and I think, the moral of the
Not that he's
story.
a bad painter. I'm just like, he's great. He's great. We're fans. Sorry. It's like,
We actually have a story around that.
Here we go. Time for it.
We're getting into the cozy hour here, folks.
That is how I have described his brain. Is like that, like a Pollock painting, and that's exactly how we've described his brain before, because it is very broad and very big, and all the ideas are out there. But
That's really my note taking.
you should see
I'm
the sticky
awful.
notes.
Awful.
No, but what I was going to say is, I think if we embrace, this sounds so cliche. Oh my God, I almost hesitate to say it. It's so cliche, but it's so true. If you embrace the positives, the attributes about people, and you honestly embrace the differences, then I think any team can be a success. If they, and it took us years to get to the point where we embraced the differences, and now we almost exploit them to the better of the company.
Yeah.
Does that sound?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
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 I mean, it's like your own little personal hack for what works for
Right.
the company. It's like, oh, hey, I now figured out what A and B does. Let's actually make this work, and we can put that formula to other good uses as well.
Yeah,
And especially with the people. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
Should I tell them about the 21 pages?
Oh gosh.
Well, you said it, no.
Yeah. I was like, don't leave us hanging here.
So I'm not going to give specifics, but Dan and I were going to be handling a very large meeting.
Yeah.
Not large as far as a lot of people, but large, and it was very significant for our organization. And it was very crucial. Dan gave a ton of thought into this. And we met. It was in a different state, we both had to fly to, and we met, and it was the night before this big meeting. And he said, I've got 21 pages of notes of me just kind of, thinking through all of my ideas and putting it all into one. And I said, how about you email those to me? And he did. And the next morning, I had a piece of paper. I took the 21 pages of notes. And we had bullets, didn't we? And we're going to start here, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do this. And it was from that, we took off.
Yeah.
We absolutely took off from that moment, because it was like the first time we just embraced our differences.
Yeah.
21 pages of brilliance, but we had to get it to something a little more like
Yeah.
Yeah.
executable. And we
Easily
need
understandable
his
and-
brilliance. And we
You
need...
keep saying that word. It's scaring me now. No, but
The
what it was...
pressure's on. No.
I mean, if you think about it, when you write down notes and it's your personal thoughts or whatnot, there's a lot of potential to be wrong or to write the wrong thing. But if you're just free writing, you don't hold back. And not only was I worried that she couldn't read my handwriting, which, there were time in the pharmacy. Definitely
I
got
learned
that.
how to read bad handwriting.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah.
But, I knew there was stuff in there that didn't make sense. It wasn't tying together. It wasn't a perfect, timeline or a flow from, point A to point B. And she made it that way. And so that's kind of an example of how we work together. But, that meeting, we killed it.
We killed it.
Nice.
Killed it.
And it's not to say all the ideas were mine. She brought it.
Yeah, for sure. Let's kind of have a little fun thing about partnership in here. There's always fun stories. We kind of mentioned like friendship and those fun things that happen when you're traveling and whatever it might be. I heard a little bit about a few different stories. We'll touch on maybe one or two of them here. The first one I kind of want to hear about is this moldy cheese story. I don't know where I really got this from, but it sounds like it'd be fun.
You get a
So
little nervous.
I think
there.
of
You're
like Cheese
moldy
Touch
cheese?
from Diary of a Wimpy Kid. Maybe I'm showing my youngness here, but
God.
yeah.
How about I tell the first half and then you tell the second half of this? It was
follow-up.
January 2020. Okay, so just a couple months before COVID.
Yeah.
The world
And
collapsed.
Dan and I wanted to have our annual strategy meeting, and it really was truly our first after we started taking off as a business. So we knew that there was a great deal that we had to put into this meeting because it was planning for 2020. Of course, it all went off the rails come March when COVID hit, but anyway.
The world said, surprise, surprise.
So we planned it. We did not have a brick and mortar office in Oklahoma at the time, and so we planned it with my husband and Jen that we were going to use our dining room table here in Oklahoma. Well, we're not here right now, but in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
And Dan and I were going to put our big board up, and we were going to do our big 2020 and out years strategy planning, how we're going to keep this business afloat. And we're working so hard for my dining room table that we decide not to break for lunch. So.
Well, like a wonderful host, she brought out a beautiful spread of crackers and meat and cheese and stuff. Mm-hmm. And
like a charcuterie board.
Yeah. And I thought, oh man, I love spicy food. I love jalapeno cheese. And so I went right for it. Mm-hmm.
Oh,
then she grabbed it from me and she's like, oh my God, I'm so embarrassed. That's not jalapeno.
I served him moldy cheese.
Oh no.
I swear. Now keep in mind, I'm still trying to like impress him at this stage and I almost kill him with moldy cheese. It was a lot. I had just bought it. By the way, I blame the store on this one. But I served him. So to this day, I'm like, when he comes over, Don and I are like, yeah, and don't worry, we're not going to serve you moldy cheese this time. Yeah, that was so.
Jokes.
I was mortified. I was absolutely.
Oh my
mortified.
God.
So yeah, now he teases me.
That's a very fun, light way to start finishing off our conversation here.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Whew, moldy cheese. See, as soon as you said jalapenos, I was like, I know where this is going. Like, oh no, hopefully you didn't eat that.
No, I caught him before he put it in his mouth.
Yeah.
You saved the day.
And even if you hadn't, I wouldn't have said anything.
Oh, I know.
Just
he would have been
like,
so sick.
Let me try
This
the
is
other
interesting
ones.
This is a
cheese.
unique cheese.
Almost a little bluish, if you will.
I don't know if I like Oklahoma cheese.
You know,
Just kidding, I
I'm
do.
going to be a cheese snob from now on. I bring my own cheese to
Jen,
parties.
I can never eat at Amy's house again. She's disgusting.
Just so you guys, oh, don't worry about it. I brought my own cheese this time. We're fine, for a snack.
And for the one person that's probably listening to this podcast, thinking, why are we talking about cheese? Why is that a big story? I think it was more about her just mortified embarrassment.
Oh,
Yeah.
I was mortified.
But it was great because it was a good, not that you need an icebreaker at that point, but it was a good opportunity to just see, like, it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
And hopefully to put her at ease because I couldn't have cared less.
Well,
Yeah.
honestly,
Oh,
I feel like that actually helps strengthen relationships. When
Absolutely.
You show your absolute most human, being right there.
100%.
I don't know how else to say it. Just like, hi, this is me being a
Yeah.
human. This is on air, and you
It happens.
officially witnessed it. It's not like everybody watches you, fall up the stairs or trip or stub your toe. But having like something very innately human that you can then get these laughs out of and bring that joy. That is such a great connection because I love having those. Quote unquote inside jokes, if you will.
Yep.
Especially with my fellow associates. Like, I think that just builds it because we're like, oh, we all went through that. So it's like a connection, a building, a strengthening of
it
it.
is.
So I love that. Moldy cheese.
A lot of the things that we talked about today, this is the last thing we'll throw out here. Melania and I, we listened to this TED Talk this week just to kind of prepare and just see what are some things about partnerships and things like that. And it's from this guy named Jan Gunnarsson. He had 7 characteristics of a good partnership. One of them was service over selfishness. You guys kind of show that you're serving each other. You're serving those that you're working with. One of the big ones that we just touched on was joy over inconvenience. You could have, a lot of maybe CEOs, maybe some of them could have been like, they serve me moldy cheese. This is an inconvenience. And it was like, no, this is funny. We can laugh about it going on. Care over indifference. We talked about that a lot. Having those differences that you have, we care about it. Not it divides us. It's no, let's make it work to our benefit. That was a great resource. I think that really kind of helped us going into this and might help those listeners that are listening in now.
Yeah.
So thank you again for joining us on here. We had a great discussion. And
Thank you. This has been so much fun.
Yay!
And I am so proud of both of you for taking this on. I know this is a special project. There's no additional compensation. You're just doing it for the passion and love of it. So thank you for volunteering, and I am so happy with this.
I am too.
Thank
You
you.
guys did great. Wonderful. So we're not going to be invited back for a second, are we?
We have another one to record.
One more. No. We appreciate Dan and Amy taking the time to join us. So the next question is for you. Yes, you. What can you do to form new partnerships at PCS? Or what partnership ideas do you want to share with PCS leadership?
Click on the link below in the show notes for this episode to give us your ideas, thoughts, and suggestions. We also have more resources for you to find your why and reach your goals. That link is below.
Join us in our next episode as we continue to help you find your purpose, find your people, and find your place at PCS. This is the Principal Choice Podcast.